Okay, so we'll get onto the highlights of your career in a moment, but I was surprised to learn that you were originally destined for a career in accountancy. Is there a correlation between accountancy and music?
You have to pay one, that's for sure. No, I was never, that's not quite right. When I left school, I know what you're referring to, Josh, here. It's when I left school, I got a job at the Daily Express newspaper on Fleet Street. And that was only because my destiny was to be a journalist. Since I was 12 years old, I was telling the school I would be a reporter, newspaper reporter. And that's a tough one to get into, even in 1968, when I started to try. It was always difficult. So I got a job at the Express newspaper just so that I could be around journalism. And I was on the accounts floor. It's true. I wasn't training to be an accountant, but I was on the accounts floor.
Right.
And you're talking to someone here who was so poor at mathematics that I didn't even sit the GCE, my O level. They wouldn't let me sit at my school. I was so useless at maths. So I was never going to be an accountant. But I used to do a day's work on the accounts floor, helping with bookkeeping and stuff. And then at 5 o'clock, I didn't go home to my mum and dad's flat for dinner. I'd go down one floor down to the news floor, which was all open plan. And I would watch the reporters on their big old typewriters, big old Remington typewriters, bang, 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 banging out the news stories for tomorrow's paper. It always fascinated me. So that's the connection. And then I did get a job as I got taken on as a trainee reporter. Did that for 4 years.
Oh, great. Josh said that was the era when Fleet Street was sort of right at the center of all of the big stories. Do you remember any iconic stories breaking while you were there?
I was only there for that 9 months, you see. Then I got a job as a trainee reporter, indentured apprenticed, and I did that for 4 years. I was involved in some good stories myself as a reporter. My last year, before I became a full professional musician, was with the East London Advertiser, and that's in Mile End, Whitechapel. And they were situated. We were right opposite the Blind Beggar, which is a famous pub in Whitechapel where murders took place on behalf of the Cray twins. So I was in the thick of it for the last year of my career. Well, I was 17 when man walked on the moon. Yeah. I remember that story well enough. Yeah, I was working there then.
So generating quite a following in the London folk scene, sort of early 1970s, how did that socio-economic structure of the time influence the issues that you were talking about in your songs?
And what issues in particular? I didn't really. Those original songs were, to be honest, they were quite based. They were mostly based on people that I knew I was mixing with. But they're all. I didn't really write about issues. I wrote about people in a bizarre sort of way. A reporter said to me just recently, I was doing an interview with a guy, and he said, "Your early material was very strange." Yep, it actually was. And he said, couldn't work out what those songs were all about. And I said, well, maybe they're not about something. And then he said, Sebastian, Sebastian, Josh, the song? Sebastian. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said to me, you know, I mean, that's a big piece. And he said, what's that about? And I just said, well, it's about 7 minutes. And I couldn't think of, it sounds glib, but, but it's, you know, you can't explain what songs are about to people. I think that, you know, we all have to make our own minds up.
Yeah. And then obviously sort of followed on and still sort of surrounded by some of the veterans of sort of that 1960s folk scene, including someone like, you know, for example, Julie Felix. How were people like yourself able to sort of learn from performing with, you know, conviction from people like herself?
All I learned in the folk clubs, I'm not a folk singer, I'm from London, you know, I'm a Deptford boy. We don't have folk music. There's no folk music in London. Everywhere in the country, all over Great Britain, and I've been to every little pocket of the British Isles in 50 years of traveling in the music business. And they all have their indigenous music. You know, it could be Yorkshire with the clogs, Oxfordshire with the tambourine and the Morris dancing. Every pocket of Britain has its own indigenous folk music. London doesn't. London's been cosmopolitan for millennia. I think the sailors would come and go from Deptford. Yeah, the sailors would come and go from Deptford and Greenwich, you know, centuries ago, but take their sea shanties with them. I never heard a sea shanty in Deptford when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s. So I only went into the folk clubs to learn how to sing to people, you know, just to fine tune my songs, to hone the songs, and to learn a bit of stage craft. And they were very clever people. Martin Carthy, Richard Thompson, John Martin. I was around. I played in the same club as them. They were playing a show, and I would only just get up and floor spot. They call it open mic now. It's where you turn up with your guitar case, and someone spots you. The host of the evening says, "Do you want to come up and do?" And I get up and do 20 minutes, you know, for no money. It's just free. I never played in a folk club for money.
So joining the folk band, Odin, you met the future Cockney rebel violinist John Crocker. What were your first impressions of him?
He's a really good player, John, yeah, and very funny. We all liked each other a lot. The first Cockney rebel, we all liked each other a lot. We laughed a lot. We were very young, and we laughed all the time, making the Human Menagerie, which is a very serious record. You know, with the orchestra and choir. It's a big record. It cost the EMI a lot of money for a band's debut album. But we were very funny. We loved each other, to be with each other. We loved it. And after 2 albums, as you know, they walked out on me, 3 of them, including John Crocker. I don't really know why. They walked away, 3 of them. Broke the band up.
How did you settle on the name Cockney Rebel?
How did
you settle on the name Cockney Rebel?
I'm not quite hearing you, my friends.
Sorry, how did you settle on the name Cockney Rebel?
Oh, the name. Well, I tell you what, when I was about 21, I was back at my mum and dad's place in London, and my mother collected stuff, and she got out some of my my poetry that I was writing at school. And amongst it was a long piece. It was 3 pages long, sort of autobiographical piece called The Cockney Rebel. It was a useless poem, to be honest. It wasn't a very good poem, but I liked the marquee, the banner, the title. I liked it a lot. Cockney Rebel. I like that. So that's where it came from. But why I called myself that, I've no idea, because as a journalist pointed out a few years ago, he said Steve Harley is neither a Cockney nor a rebel. And he's probably dead right, you know, but why spoil a good story for a few facts? You know.
Yeah. In the early 70s, there were just a handful of record companies that were sort of the holy grail of music. How significant was signing to EMI in 72? And did it ever feel like you were in a situation where you would have to compromise your creativity for commercialism?
No, EMI were brilliant. I signed on a second contract for a further 3 years. I was with them for 6 years. They were brilliant with me. I had a lot of pretty mad ideas. We were quite unique in some ways, and they let me get on with it. They encouraged me in my madness and my crazy ideas. They encouraged me. They never compromised me at all, to be honest. It was run by good men who actually liked music, musicians. It's not the way today. They're run by accountants. But back then, you had young men who really respected the writer, the player. It was quite a different world. So no, I had a great time with EMI. I was quite sorry when it ended, but it did end. Things do, you know.
Sorry, I didn't catch that myself. Was George Martin still there?
No, when I signed in 72, George Martin had already gone off. He'd started Air Studios, where we made the first album, actually. He was, the Beatles weren't recording anymore. I don't know what, he was semi-retired by then, I think.
In 75, Cockney Rebel joined an elite club where you reached #1 with Come Up and See Me. Why do you think that song struck a chord and became such an iconic song?
Frankie, I hear so much about it. Make me smile. I hear so much about it. Iconic. Yeah. It's all just serendipity, isn't it? Those guys walked out on me. The three walked out on Cockney Rebel after 2 albums. And I wrote a song about that. It's called Make Me Smile. So, you know, out of adversity, I got my pension. And that's all I can tell you. It's just a song. We recorded it. We knew at the time we had something pretty interesting. EMI loved it and said #1. Got it there. And yeah, it owes me nothing. There's no magic formula. It all just came together brilliantly for one song. I've had other hits, but I know that I realize that's what I'm known for. And I'm not ashamed of that.
No. And it leads quite nicely on to the next question. Josh went to see Lou Reed some years ago, and the audience became a little bit angry when he refused to sing Perfect Day. Could you imagine a time where you wouldn't perform your big song?
No, Lou Reed was quite a curmudgeon, a difficult man. I'm not like that. And Made Me Smile especially it's unique. It's kind of like you start the intro on stage, as we do every time we play, at the end of the show, and you can see the whole place come alive. Hopefully it's been alive for 2.25 hours before that, but it just jumps to its feet, you know? The place rocks. It has got that about it. And they all sing it. Why would I not perform it? It's just unthinkable. It's part of my pleasure, as you know, to see the whole place standing and singing and dancing. You walk off to that. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, definitely. Have you got any favourite covers from someone else performing it?
Yeah, there's been, I understand, about 130 plus
Wow.
covers of Make Me Smile. A lot of them that I've heard are just, they really replicate the original, and I don't see the point of that. But the clever ones, Duran Duran made a really interesting interpretation. It was on the B-side of The Reflex, a big hit single. That was interesting. Erasure, Andy, what's his name? Andy. Erasure. They did a really brilliant disco version of it, really brilliant. And my favorite was The Wedding Present. The Wedding Present, Weddos. It's kind of punk rocky, and they seem to get the message right, because it's a finger poke, It's basically saying, bye-bye, guys. One day you'll come back and you'll make me smile. Basically, it's kind of a bit arrogant.
Yeah.
And they got it. The Wedding Present. Go up and see me. Really, really aggressive. I quite enjoyed that.
Cool.
My favorite covers are the ones that sell the most. Just kidding.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Josh once talked about the Phantom of the Opera, 1992. Was it? You teamed up with Sarah Brightman. How does it?
86.
86. How did it feel to be associated with such a legendary production?
Oh, it came and went very brief, very brief part of my life and career. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I through the 80s at that point, I wasn't doing much. I'd had 2 children. I'd had a completely hedonistic 70s. 70s was the mayhem. You hear the myths of what they're not even myths. You hear the sex and drugs and rock and roll. And it really, truly was like that. It was mad, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. It was cracking. Yeah, it was great. It was
chill out.
Yeah, the 80s, I chill out. I had kids, and I wanted to be a bit more respectable.
Fair enough.
And Andrew Lloyd Webber came along in 86 and he came to me and said, would you sing with Sarah Brightman this duet? He wanted a rock singer's voice, not one of the West End production voices that he's used to. And he thought I fitted the bill. But I guess I did. It was a big hit. I enjoyed I enjoyed it for a while. We made the movie with Ken Russell, which was like real movie making. So I took a few things from it, good experiences, But it came and it went.
Josh, to go back to the 70s, can you remember the craziest night out you had?
It was just constant.
Yeah, not one night out, I suppose.
It's hard to imagine playing a concert and then going to a nightclub in the city we're in and drinking brandy, smoking, and then singing again the next day. I don't know how we did it, how I did it. It's being young and the constitution, you got through it with your strength of constitution. But as I get older, the singing is everything. The love of my life after family would be live performance,
Yeah.
which is why I do so much of it. It's a great life, but every time I walk on stage, and we've played 45 shows already this year, and every time I'm in the wings, about to walk on, in my heart, I've got to believe that I've got to perform as though this is the last show I'll ever do. I have to give that audience everything. And to do that night after night, you know, I did 6 in a row a couple of weeks ago, 2.25, 2 hours, 20 every night. And you have to stay fit. You have to stay fit and healthy. So my voice is my instrument. So yeah, so a lot of sleep. I'd still drink. I drink white wine after a concert, a few glasses of Chardonnay in my hotel room. But I'll be alone and I'll sleep.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
Yeah, for craziness, because the job's important. You owe it to people. People pay, you know, a ticket,
Yeah.
£30 to £100. I mean, it's a lot of money, and they deserve. You've got to go out there and show respect. So I have to be strong and healthy. So no partying anymore.
No. So what's still the thrill of performing for you?
What pardon?
What's still the thrill of performing for you?
There's a little bit, even today, even though I've been doing it for 50 years, there is still a slight rush of adrenaline. You're in the wings and you just know amongst you're all pals, and 10 minutes before I'm on stage, I'll be doing the Telegraph crossword. I'm very relaxed. I love what I do. I love it. But yeah, when it's not just the audience reaction, it's the players. We're touring a lot as a 4-piece acoustic band. And these guys are virtuoso players. But 2 of them are from the Royal Academy of Music, and 1 is just a gifted, phenomenally gifted acoustic guitar player, playing in so many different tunings, I can't even tell you. And I give them quite a lot of space to improvise, which I love, and my audience is used to. My audience loves it. So it's never the same twice. My show is never. I've seen some big shows in the last few years myself. I've been in the audience to see international huge names to play to 4,000 and 5,000 people, and their show is the same every night. The things he says between the songs is the same every damn night. The whole movements are the same every night. It's rehearsed to, you know, there's 3 of them. I'm not naming names. And that's all perfectly fine for them. And I only see it once, but I know because I know people who work with them. But with me, it's never the same twice. I changed the set list in the dressing room. I mean, they've got 50 songs rehearsed and we play 22. So I can interchange quite a lot of those. They're interchangeable. Yeah. And they're such great players that the improvised musicianship is what excites me. When we come off and I look at 3 guys and say, Christ, we're good. I mean, that's a weird thing to say, isn't it? It's not arrogant. It's not cocky. It's looking them in the eye and saying, Christ, we're good. And I'm part of it. Okay, I lead it with the guitar and my songs. I can't play like that. I'm not a virtuoso player, but I lead that band, and to know it was really, really special, and it is most nights. But sometimes the double bass player, Ollie Hayward, Ollie will play a solo at one point for about 2 minutes, and some nights it's just phenomenal. It's jazz, and he takes it into places where the rest of us are looking, thinking, crikey, where's the one? Where's the one? Where's the beat? Where is it? And I'm going, where's the one? Beginning of the sequence, because he loses us, and it's very exciting. Yeah, you're by the seat. You're flying by the seat of your pants, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, and obviously you're very proud. But looking back at your career, what is your proudest achievement?
Oh well, sitting here, that would be survival. You know, survival. Having an audience is everything. Because I've just explained what it means to me. It's not just playing on stage, it's the traveling. the adventures that we go through, things we see on the road. It's just really interesting. I'm a culture vulture. I don't sit around in hotel rooms and coffee shops. I'm out and about. I see the city, the town, the museum, the gallery, the river.
Yeah.
I see, and I record things and write diaries about it. So it's a privileged life. When I can look out into an audience and I can see 300, 500, 2,000, whatever I'm playing to. And I know that amongst, let's say, forgive me, but it's the men, let's say the men, rather than women, mostly, to generalize, amongst the men in that room, 60% of them, maybe more, wanted at one point in their life to do what I'm doing. They all played air guitar. They had a guitar. They played a bass. They had piano lessons. And they all, when they were 13, 15, 18, were dreaming about being a pop star or having a life in the music business as a rock musician. Well, we are that. And I look at them and think, don't ever take that for granted. I'm not complacent about this at all. That's looking out and saying, how lucky am I? They all want to be where I am, and I'm here. And that's self-respect. That's a mutual respect. I know they know it, and it's a nice feeling. There's a sense out there these days, guys. I can tell you. I don't know if you've been going to concerts at all since the door opened again. What I'm seeing amongst an audience is not just. For me, there's always been an easy rapport. I like people. I like people. I like the job. There's a different feeling now. It's kind of more like communion. I don't mean necessarily in a religious way, but there's a communion, a sense of sharing. We're all glad to be there at last, again, at last.
Yeah.
And you feel it. Yeah, it's a good feeling. And I hope it lasts.
Yeah, great. So lastly, what's next for Steve Harley?
It's just constantly playing. My office sent to the musicians and my guitar tech who comes everywhere with me, sent to them just a few days ago a list of over 30 shows that are now confirmed. They're not on sale yet. They're not online and on sale, but we know. And they're for next spring, March, April, May, June. 30 plus shows already, and they're coming in every day. So that's what's next. It's waiting for the next call from an agent or a promoter saying, will Steve do this? And you're on the road, can you come here? Negotiate. Other than that, it's just, I've got 3 absolutely fantastic young grandchildren. And so I'm just getting on with life, really, staying healthy. That's what's next. Getting the next booster, getting my 4th jab. Yeah. That's next.
Okay, great. Well, that's all the questions we've got. So thanks very much for your time. It was brilliant.
No, it's a pleasure. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it when Josh wrote to my office. It fascinated me. Yeah, and all strength to you, Josh.
Thanks.
All strength to you, mate.